Hey everyone, how is it going? My name is Miss Tina and you are watching Squaziland, the occasional dose of my reviews, reactions and opinions. And today I'm going to review or a bit give my opinion about Meat Nectar. Meat Nectar is a very good manga. Actually, it is a science fiction manga about a post-apocalyptic survival type of thing. I'm really into this type of sci-fi, so it's no wonder that Biomeat actually came on my radar, and I thought, why not? The manga was written by Fujisawa Yuki, and I have to say, some characters look ugly, and by ugly I do not mean ugly, I mean hideous. Terrible, 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 terrible. Really. So it is a survival manga and it shows the Japanese characters so well. It is a well thought out story from the beginning till the end, and it's not too long. I think it was 10 volumes or so, 100 chapters or so. So you can read it in a day if you want, and if you are interested in the story. However, I would recommend that you read it in 3 stages. It depends on your time, of course, and your mood, because that's in reading or while reading, it is also important to be immersed, have the time to read it, and of course have the mood for it. So this manga is basically about biomeat, which they use the short name for BM or BM meat sometimes, but it doesn't make any sense because meat is already in the sentence, but whatever. So according to the story, bioengineers in Japan created a meat, or rather something that can be eaten instead of meat. And this is our biomeat. Nobody has ever seen the biomeat except for the people who are actually working with them, but they do know that they were sort of invented or created in 2002, and this makes it a post-apocalyptic or utopistic kind of story. I think I think the manga was written and created in the 90s, so it would have made sense. Anyways, just very quickly, the story takes place in Tokyo, obviously, and it follows around 4 or 5 main characters. These characters have the plot armor, so nothing is ever going to happen to them, but everyone else, every side character, well, I have got bad news for you. Don't get too used to them. It doesn't mean that everyone will die, but most of them will, and in horrific ways. Why? Because this BM meat is something precious. This BM meat tastes a bit like pig or pork, if you will, but it eats trash. It can eat basically anything except for metal and glass. They eat everything. And by everything, I do mean everything. So, they don't have eyes. They don't know what to do with themselves. They are locked up very well in a factory. And every day they get the trash, and you don't even have to separate the trash because they separate it themselves. They are like, oh, this is glass, I'm not going to eat that. Oh, this is metal, I'm not going to eat that. Everything else they consume. And they make, of course, meat out of them. And, it's profitable. Japan's new thing has arrived, and it will make you lots of money. And, it sounds all right. So this is the biomeat part. The other part is about young children at school. Our main character is called Maya. He's a boy. He's from the Kansai region. He's from Osaka, and he has moved to Tokyo with his mother. And he has a very hard time to fit in, especially since there are bullies in his class and weirdos. And he's himself a weirdo too. And, he's loud-mouthed and everything, and for him it's a terrible thing that they moved away from his father, and he feels alone. He feels almost neglected and not understood at all. He needs friends, that's for sure, and his mother knows that, but what can we do, right? And then we have other characters too. For example, Bamba. Bamba is, well, he's a huge character and he looks ugly at the beginning, but overall, or later on he will look a bit better than he looks now, because we are going to have time skips in the story. As I mentioned before, there are 3 parts of the story. You will see why. So we have Bamba. He's the strength, and overall, he starts as a bully, but it turns out that he's actually not a bad guy. He's just, a kid, basically. Then we have Kanomiya. Kanomiya is a girl. She's shy, and she's like, nobody likes her for a reason or another. She's not the perfect girl. She's a liar. She's that. Nobody likes her. So she's an outcast too. And then we have Shigeo. Shigeo is the perfect student, perfect scores, perfect brain. His intelligence is above the rest of the crew. Anyways, these 4 people will be our base, and they are our main characters. And I can tell you as much as they won't die until the end. What happens in the end is a different thing, but until the end, they have the plot armor. Every other side character has a huge, death mark above their head, and you can't really tell who is going to survive until the end and who is not. And we have heroic characters, we have bad characters. Our 3-part story starts off in Tokyo. There's an earthquake, and a few of these BM creatures actually got loose, which is a big problem because they multiply. They are just simply like bing, bing. There's 2 of them because they can eat, and they devour everything, trees and people. And this is where the problem lies, that they eat people. It's a huge disadvantage, and this creature's whole existence is about multiplying and eating. And it doesn't want to stop. It cannot really stop. There are a few things which can stop it: heat and cold, and darkness, or not darkness, but light. Light, and that's it. So when they got loose in the first part of the series, it's like you get a pretty good picture what can happen with such a thing on a loose, and the whole part of Tokyo was actually pretty much erased by it. They had to napalm the whole thing down, and I'm not kidding. That's what happened. Our main characters do survive, and others, and they are promised not to be killed by the corporation's director who created the BM if they keep quiet about this whole thing, that it was actually the BM's fault that happened to Tokyo's area, or that area of Tokyo. And they're like, you know what, okay, we are not going to say anything, but make sure, extra sure, that this thing will never ever happen again. And they're like, okay, good. And you know what? It didn't really happen the second time. We get a few years of time skip. Our characters are getting back together. They meet and they're like, hey, what's up with you? Hey, what's up with you? Kind of thing. And through Shigeo, they get into a huge building where Americans arrive. And of course, Americans cannot let Japan win this whole food supply thing. And they decided, you know what, we can create an American BM. I mean, why not? But it is more dangerous. and it can get loose even, oh my god, you have to see it to believe it. So that, I don't know, what was it called, SBM or something like that. It was called BM, American BM. The American BM is a threat for sure, and the whole building had to be closed down, and everyone was on the survival game. We have to survive. There are some cool characters. There are There are pretty cool characters, so it's not like it's always black and white, and I really appreciate that about the story, that even though some of the characters start out as evil characters or mean-spirited characters, they turn out to be quite decent, or at least heroic, or you know, when you look at them in their final moments, you are like, you know what, that person is actually kind of good. So this is the second part of it, and in the second part they kind of stop this outbreak once again. And I'm not going to tell all the spoilers because you might want to watch it or read this story. And the third part takes place even further into the future, when our characters are almost adults. However, there has been an outbreak. How did it happen? We'll see in a flashback. What do our characters do at the moment? We see them in the current timeline. They get back together and they help each other, and eventually by the end they solve the problem. But, and there is a big but, the whole story started out because there was a scientist who thought that, you know what, I can work through this whole food supply problem. However, there were other people too who were like, you know what, that's a great business, but I'm not going to get any money out of this if I can't get the rights to this. This is why the US beam, of course, I was so silly, it is called the US beam, not the American BM, US BM, of course. So if you look at it that way, my God, the whole story is about human stupidity and human greed, nothing else. The whole story is about that. People are being stupid as hell, and this is what makes the story so relevant. And it's like, the characters act like real humans and are like real human beings. Because, you know, you would think that this is so stupid and why would you do that and whatever. But if you really think through, there are stupid people around. Right? There are smart people, of course, and we are usually smarter than those around, but, you know, this is a different species. And what's really great about it, that this story actually shows us how the earth and how countries fight over resources, because, you know, it's called BM here, but we could say that it is all electricity or any other food supply they are fighting about. So it's actually kind of scary if you think about that, and that this thing can actually still happen makes it even more scarier, and that the characters are so human makes it extra scarier. If you like survival stories and you don't like the boring ones or the ones which you have read 1,000 times, you know what will happen in the end, you know what will happen in the next chapter, it's really a bit of a unique view on that. American survival stories are always the same, but you know, in Japanese mangas and animes, you can get a pretty interesting look on that, and they do not shy away from actually killing off people in the most gruesome way possible. So if you don't like horror, it's not your manga. If you don't like ugly people, it's not your manga. But if you like a good story about survival, I think you might like this. And it's a very easy read, so it's, you really don't really have to read it in 3 goes. You can read it in 1 go if you want to. But, you know, if you take my advice, you would read it in 2 separate pieces. It has 3 separate parts, so the choice is yours. However, I think it's a great manga which deserves a live action, sorry. I'm still with One Piece live action. So it deserves an anime. And I do wonder why they haven't made an anime of it yet. Because it's so relevant, it's so human, it's so real, it's gruesome, it has horroristic elements, it's a science fiction. What else can you possibly want, even today? Thank you very much for listening to me, and if you like this sort of review, sort of opinion, make sure that you come back here and like this video, maybe other videos too. And if you have any comments on this, please you know where to give them and where to write them. Thank you very much for sticking up with me. Have a nice day. Bye bye.